Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. This is a letter to Nanjo Tokumitsu. It's a short letter, and it's titled The Teaching for the Latter Day. The teaching for you and me. I received the one toe of polished rice. I don't know, it says two here, but that's a typo. It doesn't matter how many times I proofread these books. I always, when I come back and reread it, how did I miss that? Anyway. I have received the one toe of polished rice, the horse load of taros, seaweed, dried seaweed, and the 5 blocks of konyaku. I don't think that's cognac. I don't know what it is, but that you took the trouble to send me. So thank you for my subsistence. But what do we know about gifts that Nichiren receives? He doesn't receive them as, I'm a man who needs to be fed. He receives them as, I'm a man who's preaching the true teachings of Shakyamuni's Lotus Sutra, and your sustenance, your food, your items of clothing, your so on and so forth, are offerings to that mission. In other words, to Gohonzon. And I am humbled as a man to be, and doubly reminded of my responsibility by your support to use that sustenance in service of this mission. Follow? I'm sure he'll say something to that effect. Let's go. First of all, the young lady, the daughter of the lay priest Ishikawa no Hyoi, often sent me letters, and in one that reached me on the night of the 14th or 15th day of the 3rd month, she wrote, quote, "When I observe the world around me, it seems that even healthy people will be unable to survive this year. I have been ill for a long time, but my illness has suddenly worsened. And I imagine that this will be my last letter to you." End quote. Has she then passed away after all? So the first thing he asks Nanjo Tokumitsu, a devout follower of Nichiren's, because Nanjo is he's a steward of an area, like a mayor. He thanks him for his offerings, and the first thing out of his mouth, very compassionate, he said, this one girl, obviously from your neck of the woods, as you will, wrote me a letter, and it sounded pretty dire. Has she succumbed to her illness, right? Most people believe that those who chant Namu Amida Butsu, the Nembutsu, at the moment of death are sure to be reborn in the Pure Land, for those are the golden words of the Buddha. Right? One of these errant sects that, anyway, you know the story, right? For some reason, however, the Buddha regretted and reversed his statement, saying, quote, "In these more than 40 years, I have not yet revealed the truth," end quote. Oops. See, Amida Buddha was an emanation, an imagination of Shakyamuni as an expedient means, a teaching story to lay out the path, the mental path, attitude, and intent toward one's enlightenment. And Amida Buddha is a story of how to attain that enlightenment. But people still hang on to this idea that life is shit, and when I die, I'll finally get the lottery ticket to see if I go to a good place. Which I constantly remind us all that is the religious clap chatter of magic and mysticism, and that is not Buddhism. Buddhism, even before Siddhartha's enlightenment, was about living this life well. So let that bullcrap go. But that's Nembutsu. That's Amida Buddha, Amida Buddha. No, your Buddha-ness is now. It's in this life, not after you die. Wake up. Anyway, Nichiren constantly repeats this, right? Because he's rather fed up with it. And, quote, honestly discarding expedient means I will preach only the unsurpassed way. That's the Lotus Sutra. Okay, now I'm done with all these stories and these fables. Now pay attention. This is how you do it. Lotus Sutra, Myoho Renge-kyo. This is Shakyamuni's teachings, not Nichiren's. Nichiren's just reminding everyone, hello, this is pretty clear. I've been teaching as the Buddha advocate, but all Japan has become enraged and denounced my words as groundless fabrications because they've all drank the Kool-Aid. They've been convinced by these bad teachers that they should be chanting for the next life, because right now you just need to do what I'm telling you, because that's authoritarianism, that's economics, that's government, that's politics. And they succeeded. There have been other occasions when the Buddha unexpectedly reversed an earlier teaching. In the Hinayana Sutras, he taught that there is no Buddha other than himself in any of the 10 directions, and that living beings do not possess the Buddha nature. But in Mahayana Sutras, he taught that there are Buddhas throughout the 10 directions, and that the Buddha nature exists in every living being. How can there be anyone who still uses the Hinayana Sutras? Everyone has since come to believe in the Mahayana Sutras. Well, we still have some today, don't we? Moreover, we find that there are even more unfathomable distinctions that Shakyamuni Buddha drew between the sutras. In the Lotus Sutra, he suddenly refuted all other sutras that he had preached, now preached, and would preach in the future, and declared that only the Myoho Renge-kyo was true. But his disciples would not believe him. At that time, many treasures Buddha came to bear witness to what Shakyamuni Buddha had said, and the Buddhas of the 10 directions added their testimony to his, extending their tongues until they reached the Brahma heaven, which is a hyperbolic, I remembered, of this word that always escapes me, of propagation, the long tongue, reaching all over by word of mouth, yeah? See, it's not that difficult to understand if you don't think magically. Wow, they had long tongues back then. No. After many treasures Buddha had closed the door of the treasure tower and the other Buddhas had returned to their original lands, right? The Butsudan, that's what the Butsudan is, an instantiation of this treasure tower, mandala, Namu Myoho Renge-kyo, our essential engine of life. Not even Shakyamuni Buddha himself could have denied the Myoho Renge-kyo, the Lotus Sutra. Whatever other sutras he might have expounded in an effort to do so, because the other Buddhas had all joined in affirming this truth, read the Lotus Sutra. That is why in the Universal Worthy and Nirvana Sutras, which follow the Lotus Sutra is praised but never disparaged, because they're all in service to it. Nonetheless, priests like Shanwu Wei of the True Word School and the founders of the Zen School have repudiated the Lotus Sutra, and the entire Japanese nation has now taken a resolve and conviction in their teachings, just like those who were deceived by the rebels Masakado and Sadato. Japan is now on the brink of ruin because it has for many years been the arch enemy of Shakyamuni, many treasures, and the Buddhas of the 10 directions. And in addition, the persons who denounces these errors are persecuted, himself obviously included. Because such offenses thus accumulate on top of one another, that's messed up too, our nation will soon incur the wrath of heaven. I want to pause for a moment. Where are we time-wise? Yeah, plenty of time. I was just talking about this in the last video. Right here is your big aha about how translating your practice of awakening Buddha in your mind now. Open your Butsudan, go to your mandala, chant Namo Myo Renge Kyo, recite Gongyo, all with a mind of awakening your Buddha-ness, not with worldly matters. There's only one thing you're trying to do when you chant and you recite, and that is to awaken your Buddha mind. That's it. And that translates immediately into your samsaric world. Your world, your household, your community, your country, your city, your nation, your world will reflect your life condition. That's how you're supported in fully manifesting, expressing your potential. That is why we practice to enlighten our Buddha mind. Not to get things. That's samsara. Do you understand? The universe will supply you everything you can possibly express in your karmic reality. Your work is your practice, your focused Buddha wisdom, Buddha mind. And what Nichiren is saying right here, reread this paragraph, is saying if you don't do it right, if you practice for this or that or the other, or you practice outright incorrectly, then your world will reflect it. Japan is reflecting this diseased mispractice, these errors. And Japan is plummeting into famine, disasters, invasion. And Nichiren's going, what do you expect? Your goal is poisoned. So of course your environment will reflect that poison. It's really simple. Should I reread that paragraph? I'll let you do it. But Nichiren and all the teachings constantly bring this about, but we miss it. We get involved in all the, is that the guy from the 3rd century? The meaning. The meaning is what we need to get out of this, not the words. Right? To continue. Perhaps because of karma from the past or some other reason, this woman chanted Namo Myoho Renge Kyo at the moment of her death, not Amida Butsu. This is as rare as the one-eyed turtle finding a suitable hollow in a floating sandalwood log. You remember that story? Or a thread lowered from the heavens passing through the eye of a needle on earth. How wondrous. Nichiren is giving kudos to this gal who wrote him this letter. That if she maintained her focus on her Buddha-ness, that even in the last moments of her life, that was her focus, then not only was her life expressed to the maximum of her potential, not that the illness was the maximum of her potential, but that whatever your state in life, if your Buddha mind is awake, then your experience of it is altered significantly, yes? But the effect, the influence of her life, though she's extinct, she has touched the lives of many others. And after her extinction, that affect will be imbued with Buddha nature. How inspiring is that? That's why he says, how wondrous. That's amazing. It's not about her going to some Viking cruise around Norway. It's about the impact of her life. What could be more amazing? The sutra passages clearly show that those who believe in the Nembutsu are destined to fall into the hell of incessant suffering. In other words, right back into samsara. But since people are not aware of this, they all think that it is my own fabrication. He's hexing us. That is what is meant by the saying that the heavens and one's eyelashes are alike. Interesting. People can see neither their own eyelashes, which are so close, nor the heavens in the distance. If my teachings were false, surely this lay nun would not have had a correct and steadfast mind at the moment of her death. She would have been suffering wildly, right? Miserable. Instead, she was still instantiating her Buddha nature. Yeah, that's wondrous. Among my disciples, those who think themselves well versed in Buddhism are the ones who make errors. Because they're egos. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo is the heart of the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge Kyo. It is like the essence of a person. It says soul here, and that's wrong. To revere another teaching as its equal is to be like a consort who is married to two emperors, or who secretly commits adultery with a minister or a humble subject. It can only be a cause for disaster. This teaching was not propagated in the former or middle day of the law because the other sutras had not yet lost their power of benefit. It's every step along the way, right? When you learn the alphabet, that's not the end goal. But then when you move on from that to learn how to read and write, that alphabet serves you well. So it's an important teaching. And then when you learn to read and write, you then can learn how to communicate better. And then you learn grammar to become a better communicator, and so on and so forth. So those teachings at that time for the capacity of those people was significant. They were making progress. Right? This is not my own judgment. Oh, wait, only not. Come on. Had not lost their power. Now, in the latter day of the law, however, in our epoch, neither the Lotus Sutra nor the other sutras led to enlightenment. Only Namo Myoho Renge Kyo can do so. That's a bold statement, yeah? This is not my own judgment, he says. Shakyamuni, many treasures, the Buddhas of the 10 directions, and the Bodhisattvas who emerged from the earth, you and I, as numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds, have so determined it. That is the story of the ceremony in the sky. Read the chapter on the treasure tower. This is what Nichiren has created for us. The Butsudan, the place of highest potential, protecting and housing the Lotus Sutra, the self-enlightenment doctrine, with the treasure tower right down the center, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, which is our essence. See, that's a reflector. In the Lotus Sutra, that story of the treasure tower makes it very clear that this is how our mind moves into Buddha-ness. To mix other practices with this Namu Myoho Renge Kyo is a grave error. This is why you hear the admonitions like, don't put your baseball trophies on the shelf next to the Butsudan. That's a worldly distraction. Be proud of that on another wall, but not on this. This is Buddha-ness. How can dewdrops be beneficial when the rain falls? Should one feed a newborn baby anything other than its mother's milk? You put a burger in its face. I love burgers. No addition of other medicines is needed with a good medicine. Somehow this woman remained true to this principle and continued to uphold her resolve and conviction until the last moment of her life. How admirable, how worthy. With my deep respect, Nichiren. Quite an encouraging letter. He must have heard something about this gal. But he wants to assure Nanjo Tokumitsu that even though this young person in his area has passed away, that it wasn't because she did anything wrong, but that her life has meaning because she committed to her Buddha nature. Next letter, King Rinda. And that's a really good one. I remember that one from previous readings. So, until then, please consider your practice precious. Practice only for your own enlightenment, and let that Buddha nature, Buddha wisdom, then carry you through your daily activities. You'll see it mirrored. Okay? Have confidence in that. Take care of your health. Interesting to say that after this reading. Be kind. It's easy. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. Thank you for liking and subscribing. Go to the bookstore. Go to the mandala store if you need an accurate mandala. Or, hey, the ebooks. You can download a mandala now digitally and print it out on any valuable, pretty, handmade paper you like, as long as it's not distracting. Remember, it's about Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, not how the paper has pretty leaves in it. You don't do that. Right? Try to get something clear. Rice paper, white paper, it doesn't matter, as long as it's edifying your practice, your Buddha nature, and nothing else. Your practice, your Buddha nature, that's all that matters. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one, okay? Bye for now. Myo.